program manager who oversees the Consolidated Plan and the Annual Action Plan for the state of Georgia's Department of Community Affairs. We are here to provide you a highlight of the the allocation plan so that we can add it to our federal fiscal year 2016 allocation, and so that we can be in compliance with the requirements of HUD so that we can allocate the funds on a later date this year. Joining me today is our staff here at the Department of Community Affairs from my team, housing, the home administration section that is responsible for the plan, Robin Chapman, Jamise Patel, December Thompson, as well as the young lady who will go into more detail about the allocation plan for the National Housing Trust Fund. I'll cover the Consolidated Plan section of the public hearing, and she will give you a little bit more information about the plan, which you can read in its entirety on our website. So to get started, just logistical, you'll be able to ask any questions. This broadcast is being recorded, and we will record all of the comments and questions. We will not open up the line to take questions. However, if you have questions about anything that we're going over, you can type it into the chat box, and we will verbally respond to that. And then we will save this as an archive for our citizen participation requirements. So as I indicated, I will get us started with the overview. I do not anticipate this in a whole hour, but we did block out the time for us to have the public hearing so that we can have question and answers at the end of the broadcast. Okay, so, oh, and I'm sorry I did not introduce of the allocation plan. So I'll go ahead and get us started. I hope everybody can hear us. If you cannot hear us, I guess you can raise your hand and indicate that in the box that you can't hear us, but I'm hoping everything is set up correctly. Okay, there's some contact information that we're going to reiterate at the end of the broadcast, but for more information about the National Housing Trust Fund, allocation plan, contact, Brittney at that number and email as well. If you have any questions about the annual action plan or the comp plan, you can give me a call at Christy Fletcher, and there's my contact information. So we're just going to go over the overview of this webinar today. We will give you a little bit of background of the National Housing Trust Fund, as well as the Consolidated Plan and how that plays into effect of this new allocation that is totally outside of our regular federally funded formula allocations. And then, of course, Brittney will go into the allocation plan that will then kind of feed into what it looks like when we get ready to allocate the funding, and then have some questions and answers. All right, so the background of this particular funding source is, of course, established. It's probably I believe, the very last of the Housing and Economic Recovery Act funding, because it did not come from any of the federally funded formula programs. This was an enactment of where Freddie Mac and Freddie Mac had to allocate funds to be as a I would say one of the things that came out of the Recovery Act, of that funding source being where we will continue to produce and preserve affordable housing. So it goes back to 2008, but it took that long for it to be kind of directed on, okay, y'all now need to start allocating allocating funds to this particular source. And in 2015, HUD did publish an interim rule that issued the fact that it was time to allocate the funding. So here we are in our federal year 2016, where we have our first allocation. The National Housing Trust Fund is going to be earmarked to affordable housing. It does have a homeownership component to it. However, for our purposes and for this first year round of funding, the affordable housing program is earmarked to extremely low and very low income homeownership households. So they were looking at anyone below 30% of the AMI and very low in between the 30 to 50% of the AMI. And so therefore, when it gets to a higher percent, like $1 billion, then the extremely low income, the focus right now is that. But when it gets past a certain amount of money, they will probably open it up for more of it. That's the reason why we have to kind of look at the allocation every year so that we are best meeting the need of these funds based on the population in the household. So it's very similar to the home program, with the exception of the affordability period, 30 years, of course, in any home programs with new construction is up to 20, and that 80% of the funds are for production of rental housing only in homeownership, where home can be other activities, but in this case, 80% of the funds are for production of rental housing. Let's talk a little bit about the Consolidated Plan. As you do know, DCA the governor has designated GHFA, or the Georgia Housing and Finance Authority, to administer the National Housing Trust Fund. So we'll administer like all our other programs here at DCA. Before today, there has been several public input processes in place. We haven't had webinars, we had stakeholder meetings, conference calls, to kind of get an idea way before the allocation was earmarked for the state of Georgia. In addition to that, we have we have the draft allocation plan on our website, and today we're having the public hearing, and that will end on July 27th or something. I think it's on the website, so I think it's the 27th. And then we'll also go ahead and put this PowerPoint presentation on our website, as well as with the substantial amendment once we submit it to HUD on August 16th. So all of those things will be available on the Consolidated Plan website of DCA. So we're doing a little bit of work. We've had a couple of webinars, as well as had some office hours with HUD on what we need to do in order to make amendments to our Consolidated Plan and our action plan. So there will be, after reviewing our strategic plan and our action in our comp plan, which will actually, our 5-year will expire in another year, we didn't really see too much of a difference from what we are already doing, since we have a diverse amount of programs out there that that really address extremely low as well as moderate income families, so that we didn't see a whole need to modify too much of our language in our current strategic plan of our comp plan in upcoming years. And as we go into approaching our update of our new 5-year plan of after 2018, we will take a more deeper look at what we need to do as far as addressing some issues in our comp plan. However, in our annual action plan, we have identified some things in which we want to include as far as performance goals, as well as making sure that we address our need of how many people we will target for affordable housing, and later on, Brittney will identify that in the annual allocation plan overview. HUD will typically review the plan in its normal 45 days and let us know if it's approved, and in the meantime, we will carry on here at DCA with our planning and preparation for getting that allocation out of the door by the, hopefully we have no set date right at this time, but definitely hopefully before the end of the calendar year. Okay, so that is, primarily all we have to do for the action plan. We're going to continue working with the team here to make sure that we have updated as much as we can for our action plan and so that we can get the funds out the door. And Brittney, I'm going to turn it over to her now to kind of give you more of an overview of the annual, the allocation plan that we have for comment period right now. Brittney?
Thank you, Christy. So the State of Georgia National Housing Trust Fund is developed annually and submitted to HUD with the annual action plan. Within the allocation plan, we will contain the application requirements as well as the selection criteria, which is something I'll get into a little bit later. Funds will be awarded on a competitive basis. Funds will also be provided outside of the low-income housing tax credit rounds through a compliance-based grant. However, if there's an insufficient number of eligible applicants through the NOFA, then the funds will be utilized in the subsequent housing round, and it will act as something similar to the DCA Home Fund. I'll get into distribution of funds. For the fiscal year 2016, as Christy stated earlier, we'll get approximately $3.3 million. DCA plans to retain 10% of the National Housing Trust Fund annual allocations for allowable administrative and planning costs. DCA will also retain up to 1/3 for operating cost assistance for funding operating cost reserves. So the operating cost assistance and operating cost reserves are only good for HTF assisted units, so you won't be able to use it for units that are not HTF assisted. The balance of the grant will provide capital funding for new construction and rehabilitation of NHTF units. So this is a chart of what I just went through. So as you can see, the administrative and planning costs, that would be 10%, so that's approximately $331,000. And then you have your operating cost assistance and operating cost reserves, which is 1/3, which is approximately $1.1 million. And then the balance from those is $1.8 million, and this is your grand total of $3.3 million that we will be allocated. Application requirements. DCA will announce the availability of the NHTF funds by publishing a NOFA on its website, by email and other communication channels. Each NOFA will contain the specific requirements needed to apply for this source of funding. And as an additional source, you can sign up for notifications on the Housing Finance and Development webpage. So we have jumped into our eligible recipients. So our eligible recipients are your for-profit entities, qualified nonprofit entities, and your public entities that will undertake eligible activities on behalf of ELI and BLI households. So right now I'm showing 3 of the things that a recipient must qualify for, but within the allocation plan there are additional things. So the first one is comply with requirements during the affordability period, which is the 30 years, as well as demonstrate the ability to own, construct, and rehabilitate, as well as manage and operate an affordable multifamily rental housing development, and demonstrate the ability and financial capacity to undertake, comply with, and manage the eligible activities. So now we're going to get into the HUD required funding priorities. So each application meeting threshold requirement, as stated in the allocation plan, will be reviewed and assigned points according to the following criteria. So we have geographic diversity, applicant capacity, project-based rental assistance, period of affordability, priority housing needs, and use of non-federal funds. So I'm going to go back and kind of describe each section so you have a better idea of what each of them means. So for geographic diversity, all the funds for the National Housing Trust Fund will be available for the entire state. Applicant capacity, applicants must show the ability to obligate National Housing Trust Fund dollars and undertake funded activities in a timely manner. Project-based rental assistance, applicants must be able to secure federal, state, and local project-based rental assistance so that rents are affordable for the extremely low income families at or below 30%, only for those developments that are NHTF assisted. period of affordability, development supported by NHTF funds will be required to enter into a restrictive covenant agreement to maintain units in the program for a 30-year period. In the priority housing needs, applicants must show to the extent to which the development proposes accomplishments that will meet the rental housing objective outlined in Georgia's most recent consolidated plan. And the use of non-federal funds basically says that applicants must have the ability to leverage National Housing Trust funds with additional funds, but these funds have to be non-federal. Okay, so the eligible activities for HTF funds are as follows. You have acquisition, site improvements, and development hard costs, related soft costs, demolition, finalizing costs, relocation costs, and as well as operating costs. And all of these are only good for National Housing Trust funded assisted rental units. Therefore, you won't be able to use it for units that are not funded through National Housing Trust Fund. So this is the fiscal year 2016 performance goal. This will be an amendment to the consolidated plan. So this breaks down for the years 2016 and 2017, the goals and outcomes that we plan to construct approximately 8 rental units and then rehabilitate 8 rental units. As you can see, the geographic area is entitlement and non-entitlement areas, which goes back to saying that it's available to the entire state. The needs that will be addressed will be the affordable rental housing, and of course, goes back to the $3.3 million that we will be allocated.
Okay, as I indicated, this is going to be a quick one. It's not a lot of money, and also it's much of a change to the way for us to make sure that we can. So if we have any questions about the plan, as Brittney indicated, that you can find the complete allocated plan on the website, and is in a comment period, so you can take a look at it in more detail. We just did not really feel that it was necessary to reiterate everything that was in the plan that is available for your review. You can find the plan. Let me go ahead and get to the next slide. Exactly where the plan is located, so that you can look it up and also send in comments. But if you had anything that you wanted to we do have some questions. Hold on. So the first question is, so in the first year, DCA will not use housing trust, the National Housing Trust Fund for home ownership, but just for rental housing. That is correct. At this time, we as an agency is not doing anything in home ownership outside of our CHIP program for our allocation. So right now, the National Housing Trust Fund is only for rental housing, especially with the amount of money we are receiving. And you saw the breakdown. It's not that much. Brittney, did you want to indicate anything else?
No, not at this time, but we will, as the pot grows for the money that we will get, we will consider maybe doing home ownership, but right now we're just going to stick with the rental housing.
I'm sorry about if you didn't hear us. Is anything else? Any other questions? I see a question here. Savannah has an affordable housing fund that does not receive federal funds, it should be eligible to apply given our read, but can you clarify? So I'm not quite sure if you're indicating Savannah doesn't receive affordable housing funds from the state, or because I believe Savannah is an entitlement state. So that's probably why you don't receive any funds. I'm not quite sure if I understand. Would Savannah be eligible to apply? Is this for, I believe that this fund is entitlement, right? Are there any other questions? As I indicated, this webinar was not in the whole hour, but we did put it in the slot so that we can have enough time to address questions and answers. Document the questions. That's the reason why we wanted to see what the questions are, and we will answer them as well and put them on our website. That you can hear us. We're probably in the bad room. So that being the case, we are going to, if you have any questions, as I indicated, you can reach out to Brittney about the allocation plan. If you have any questions about the annual action plan or the comp plan, you can give me a call, and our information is there. But we encourage you to definitely reach out to the National Housing Trust Fund website and also our webpage to download the information. You will be able to find the this presentation on the Consolidated Plan of the of our website. And if there is nothing else additional, we're going to end this. Thank you, and have a great afternoon.